Hi. My daughter's smiling over there. Hi, good morning. I'm Emily. My husband, am I not loud enough? Am I loud enough? I am giving a testimonial for our pledge drive this month. I'm Emily, and my husband Austin, and our two kids, Gigi and Corinne, who you often see scrambling around the church, have been members since 2019. I grew up in the Unitarian Church in Central Oregon. Looking back, I like to tease that my brother and I were the whole entire RE program. Growing up in Bend, between church and school and family, my community was built in. I stopped attending church regularly in my 20s and began exploring life in other ways. I took a big step and moved away from my comfort zone to Portland with a good friend. I started a new job, and I began trying to figure out how to build community in a city, or in general, really. I kept trying to find friendship connections, but I felt as though people were taking applications and not really hiring for new friends. After a while, I decided I would check out the First Unitarian Church. Upon entering, a little bit late, I tripped and made a racket. Scrambling to find my seat, I looked around and thought, wow, this is a huge church. I was overwhelmed by First Unitarian and only made it a few times. I continued to look for community in other ways as I settled into living in Portland. As fate would have it, I ran into Austin and got swept up in romance. I was in love, I was busy with work, and my need for community simply wasn't that strong. Life was a whirlwind. We both returned to school. We moved many times. We got married, and we finally settled back into Portland. Austin and I built a business in Portland with a new baby. Having a baby brought a whole new community. Our lives were busy and active and full of friends. We were making community. However, as our business and our family grew, we knew we needed to make plans for our future. We decided to buy a house and a property to move our business on site. This was a big decision for us. We were moving 30 minutes away from the community that we had built. It didn't seem like a lot, but we knew that it would create changes in our relationships. Landing in Canby, knowing that this would be our forever home, we wanted to create community here as well. I was so excited to find a UU church in Oregon City. We decided to come to the Bring a Friend service. We came to church that first day, and I couldn't believe how many kids were there. My kids started in the RE program when they were 2 and 5 years old. I was delighted that not only I was going to be able to create community, but that they would as well. We became official members in 2019. When it came to filling out our stewardship card, I called my dad. Dad, how are we supposed to contribute? We can't give that much. Bear in mind, we still had a kid in childcare. He said, so give a little, give what you can. There are people in the church that are at a place in their life that can contribute more than you, and there are people that can contribute less. It doesn't matter what you contribute, as long as it all goes towards the same common goal and community. And one day you will be able to give more, and you will give more. I was so excited about this new community we were building. My oldest had just started kindergarten, and I felt like we were finding our place. And then 2020. During that year, I struggled to stay connected to the church through Zoom. Yet I knew that I had created a foundation here. When my sister died in October 2020, I knew that I could reach out to Marcia and tell her my story and share my pain. I knew that when I returned to church, I would be welcome whenever I showed up. As the world opened up and we came back together, returning to church, we were excited to see old friends and connect with new friends. The youth program began to rebound, and I went back to teaching RE. Watching the pews fill each Sunday and having a full RE classroom fills me with delight. I am so happy that my kids are growing up in this program, the friends they are making, and the extra supportive adults that they will have in their life. Earlier this year, on the anniversary of my sister's death, I was taking some time to think about my life. I had this clear moment of contentment. I thought, if anything were to happen to me or Austin, we would be supported. We would be rallied around. Our kids would be supported, uplifted, and rooted for. In that moment, I could feel the community spirit envelop me. I thought, we're doing it. We are actively creating community, supporting each other and being supported. This gave me a real sense of peace and safety. I believe in this community, the actions that we stand for, the support and love that we are providing the youth, and the safe place that we are. I also know that to have this space and create this community, we have to contribute financially. We give to the church each month and we get so much in return. So just know that if you can give a little, that helps. And if you can give more, please do.
Good morning. My name is Sara Forrest, and I am your worship associate this morning. What a lovely poem that was. Still glowing from it. I love family history. I love stories. I am, in fact, the daughter of a librarian and a bona fide storyteller. Family lore has always been important to me, and I have that privilege of being able to trace my family tree many generations into the past. I'm a collector of information, I interrogate the elders, and I like to know the record. I do this because it feels important to me. This is my beginning point of creating that personal mythology. You know, the one that helps us answer that age-old question, why am I like this? When I began to think on the question of where am I from, my mind naturally wandered down those lineages and these ancestors, some of them known and loved, and some lost to time. I thought about how their lives inform my own and help me make sense of things, how they guide me when a choice is to be made. I noticed in these wanderings how even my grandparents, the complex people I knew and loved in person, often just get reduced in my mind to an essence of how I perceived them when they were alive. I have one that nudges me towards joy and playfulness when I get too serious. One who teaches me to keep steady when I'm facing uncertainty. Another that reminds me to take care of my wounds, lest I wound others in turn. And one grandmother whose deep love and quiet dignity lead me to right action. When I think of them like this, I realize I am engaged in an act of creation. Even as my ancestors have shaped me, so I am shaping them. I gave my children family names, ones specially chosen to represent hopes I have of them, kindness, honesty, and generosity in their lives. But they will be free to make of these names what they will. In this way, even beyond death and life, we are creating something together. This continuity, this strange kind of time collapse, is deeply comforting and grounding for me. It allows me to be from a people, but still free to explore in my own way, in my own time. And here is the deeper layer I came to as I considered this question of where do I come from? While my experience of myself uses the language of ancestry to create meaning and a sense of source, this is a constructed framework. This is a creative structure that helps me articulate that larger understory, which is simply too vast and too awe-inspiring to contend with on the daily. And that is that we are all connected across time and space in this experience of consciousness. My family stories, my sense of origin is just a constellation in an unimaginable universe. As Carl Sagan said, the cosmos is within us. We are made of stardust. We are a way for the universe to understand itself. So, where am I from? I have no idea. But I suspect, I hope, that I am from the past. I'm from the right now, and I'm from that yet to come which our children will create anew.
Our reading today is a poem from Jo Carson, and it's called, "I Am Asking You to Come Back Home." I am asking you to come back home before you lose your chance of seeing me alive. You already missed your daddy. You missed your Uncle Howard. You missed Lucille. I kept them and I buried them. You showed up for the funerals. Funerals are the easy part. You even missed that dog you left. I dug him a hole and put him in it. It was a Sunday morning, but dead animals don't wait no better than dead people. My mama used to say she could feel herself running short of the breath of life. So can I, and I am blessed tired of burying things I love. Somebody else can do that job for me. You'll be back here then. You come for funerals. I'd rather you come back now and get my stories. I've got whole lives of stories that belong to you. I could fill you up with stories. Stories I ain't told nobody yet. Stories with your name, your blood in them. Ain't nobody gonna hear them if you don't, and you ain't gonna hear them unless you get back home. When I am dead, it will not matter how hard you press your ear to the ground. Where do we come from? There are so many ways to answer that question. And I get so frustrated with census forms that want my ethnic identity because I've never had a family member, or I've never had contact with a family member who came from anywhere else. With the exception of my mom's dad, who I never met because he was not a good human being, all of my relatives were born in Oregon to parents who were born in Oregon. I acknowledge, and it is important to acknowledge, that my people were not native to Oregon, that indigenous folks lived here for thousands of years before white people like my ancestors came and took this land, and that is a part of my history, and it is important to name that. But for me, honestly, what matters isn't so much my lineage or where my ancestors came from. It is instead my rootedness in place. It is the land that I lived on, land that belonged to others, but land that belonged to the soil and the ocean and the plants and the animals that lived here before humans did. And so today we're going to talk about being rooted in place, where we came from, who our people are, and how the land and our families have shaped us. And today we're mostly going to explore that through the lens of poetry. Art is often how we best describe things in ways that make us feel things, that tug on our emotions. Paul Gauguin, who painted a picture in Tahiti whose title formed the lyrics of our opening hymn, "Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?" is best known for his portraiture of Polynesian people in Tahiti and other French colonies. Many of us have been moved to tears by art in one form or another, novels or movies or music or art. And poetry is another form of art that inspires emotions. And poets have long looked at place and ancestors and culture as the subject of their poetry. And so today we're going to hear a few poems that could have been inspired by the phrase, "Where do you come from?" And then we are going to write our own. The original poem from Where Do You Come From, was written by George Ella Lyon. And her poem says, "I am from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I am from the dirt under the back porch, black, glistening. It tasted like beets. I am from the forsythia bush, the Dutch elm whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I am from fudge and eyeglasses, from Imogen and Alifair. I'm from the know-it-alls and the pass-it-ons, from perk up and pipe down, from he restoreth my soul with a cotton ball lamb and 10 verses I can say myself. I'm from Artemis and Billy's branch, fried corn and strong coffee, from the finger my grandfather lost to the auger, the eye my father shut to keep his sight. Under my bed was a dress box, spilling old pictures, a sift of lost faces to drift beneath my dreams. I am from these moments, snapped before I budded, leaf fall from the family tree. And this poem, called The Housing Poem, is written by Dean Millen. Dean Millen is an indigenous person native to the Pacific Northwest. And this is from a book called When the Light of the World Was Subdued, Our Songs Came Through. It's an anthology of Native Nations poetry edited by Joy Harjo. This is called The Housing Poem. Minnie had a house which had trees in the yard and lots of flowers. She especially liked the kitchen because it had a large old cast iron stove, and that, the landlord said, was the reason the house was so cheap. Pretty soon Minnie's brother Rupert came along and his wife, Ona, and they set up housekeeping in the living room on the fold-out couch. So the house warmed and rocked and sang because Minnie and Rupert laughed a lot. Pretty soon their mom, Elsie, came to live with them too because she liked being with the laughing young people and she knew how the stove worked the best. Minnie gave up her bed and slept on a cot. Well, pretty soon Dar and Shar, their cousins, came to town looking for work. They were twins, the pride of Elsie's sister Jo, and boy, could those girls sing. They pitched a tent under the cedar patch in the yard and could be heard singing around the house, mixtures of old Indian tunes and country western. When it was winter, Elsie worried about her mother, Sara, who was still living by herself in Moose Glen back home. Elsie went in the car with Dar and Shar, and Minnie and Rupert got her. They all missed her anyway in her funny stories. She didn't have any teeth, so she dipped all chewable items in grease, which is how they're tasty, she said. She would sit on a chair in front of the stove usually, or would cook up a big pot of something for the others. By and by, Rupert and Ona had a baby who they named Lester, or nicknamed Bumper, and they were glad that Elsie and Sara were there to help. One night the landlord came by to fix the leak in the bathroom pipe and was surprised to find Minnie, Rupert and Ona, Sara and Elsie, Shar and Dar, all sitting around the drum next to the big stove in the kitchen, and even a baby named Lester who smiled, waving a big greasy piece of dried fish. He was disturbed. He went to court to evict them. He said the house was designed for single-family occupancy, which surprised the family because they thought that's what they were. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask the ushers to come down, and we are going to pass around pieces of paper. We're going to do 2 different things today. We've got some time. We are going to write an I am from poem. Each of you are, if you want. If you don't want to, you don't have to. There is no requirement. You can just sit there and stare out the window if you'd prefer. So in just a minute, after I stop talking, we are going to have some prompts up on the screen that's going to tell us about how to write a Where I'm From poem. So you're going to write down a specific item from your childhood home, and then 2 products or objects from your past, a phrase describing your childhood home, more description of your childhood home, a plant or a tree or a natural object from your past, and then you're going to personify that natural object, or you can write another natural object, I don't care. 2 objects, 2 family names or ancestors, a couple of family traits or tendencies, a religious memory or family tradition, 2 foods from your family history, a specific event from the life of an ancestor, and another detail from an ancestor, and a memory or an object. So I wrote one yesterday, and this is mine. I am from Great-Grandma Stanard's piano. I am from Clearasil and Noxzema. I am from the house on Baker Creek Road with the Princess Staircase and the house up Schooner Creek with the footbridge. I am from the alder tree at the edge of the forest whose arms sheltered me as I stared at the creek or read a book. I am from beach agates and dusty blackberries in August, from Annie Margie and Grandma Reynolds, and from the smell of tidal mudflats mixed with gasoline and motor oil, from stubbornness and drinking Coke out of the bottle, from building gingerbread houses, from tuna noodle casserole and scrambled hamburgers, from ancestors crossing the Oregon Trail and Dad cooking in the Coast Guard. I am from going to the library with Mom and bringing home piles of books and listening to 8-tracks in the car, from dilly bars at Dairy Queen and playing possum in the back seat so Dad would carry me inside. I am from long walks on the beach and fishing from the boat, from catching mudcats with my sister as my dad baited our hooks with worms as we floated down the river in the boat wearing our orange life jackets. I am from the smell of the ocean and the soft crunch of scrub pine needles underfoot. You are not going to have to share these poems. You are invited to share these poems. You're invited to drop them off on the altar. You're invited to take them home. You're invited to do whatever you would like with them. But I would like you to spend just a few minutes writing one now. And then in a couple of minutes, we're going to write one about the church. And if you were at home, yes, I was not expecting you to remember that, I promise. And if you were at home, I totally invite you to write one as well. You can now see the prompts as well, and you are invited to do this. And if you don't want to write on paper and want to do it on your phone, there is actually a tiny URL web page that'll take you to something that you can put it in on your phone. Okay, if you're better at multitasking than I am, you can finish yours up if you are not done. And if not, we're going to do one for the church, okay? So can someone give me a specific item from the church? Just shout it out. Okay. Two other things from the church. The piano. Yes. How about a phrase describing this place? Big pink. Okay, somebody think of Bev, can you tell me about a plant or a natural a tree or something around this place? Ginkgo. Okay. Can you personify that natural object or tell me something about it? Nice. Two other objects. to ancestors or folks who you associate with this place? Give me one more. I got Dolores. Give me one more. Got to make it go. Thanks. Family traits or tendencies. I think I did that, and what do we do here? Tell me something that we do here. Potlucks. Okay. A specific event in the history. Ah. And then give me a couple phrases that you hear a lot around here. You are welcome here? We are from the chalice, from the piano and the stained glass windows, from the big pink church with the tall towers and the open doors. We are from the ginkgo trees that turn autumn yellow and the pews and the Boone's Ferry wing. From George Atkinson and Marion Miner, from Dolores and Dick Bellingham. From potlucks and conversation and singings and committee meetings, from fellowship and the congregation. We are from merger and from dancing in the park, from caring for interned Japanese friends. We are from you are welcome here, and where's the door, and all inclusive, and we hold you in our love as you go. May it ever be so.